Hello and welcome to episode 118 of Driver's Seat Blog Radio. As always, I'm your host, David G. Firestone. We're just going to be doing a short episode for this week as well as the next week as I have way too much on my plate right now. I've got way too much going on. I'm completely swamped through reasons that are completely out of my control. So we're only going to be doing a few short episodes over the next few weeks. We're going to start with AEW. Now granted, in their last pay-per-view, AEW Dynasty, I think they made more than a few mistakes and more than a few bad booking decisions, but we're not going to talk about that because there's bigger fish to fry, and believe it or not, we're in Bizarro World because I'm praising them this week. Because even a busted clock is right twice a day, and even a blind squirrel finds a nut sometimes. And sometimes even AEW can make the right decisions and do something right. For once. Now, the genesis of this particular dumb controversy comes to us courtesy of the Oklahoma State Athletic Commission. So, in January of 2023, at a Ring of Honor taping, Nyla Rose, who was out and transgender, faced Alexandra Leon for an episode of Ring of Honor, which was taped alongside AEW Holiday Bash at the Paycom Center in Oklahoma City. Because of Oklahoma City's laws regarding transgender participation in sport, the state's athletic commission, which still for some reason regulates professional wrestling, met and censured AEW for violating the rules regarding quote-unquote intergender wrestling. Now, I'm going to read the exact statement that's from the athletic commission themselves. It's under Item F, discussion into what punitive action to take against AEW for allowing a transgender wrestling (born male) to compete against a female. Quote, the administrator, Joe Miller, explained that AEW, a professional wrestling organization, held an event at the Paycom Center on December 20th, 2023, where a transgender wrestler (born male) had a match with a female wrestler. OSAC had no idea that the wrestler had filled out his wrestling license application as a female, and OSAC was alerted by a local wrestling organization that had previously done the same thing. That organization acknowledged that they knew that that was a violation of the OSAC rules and that they would refrain from doing it again in the future. Joe Miller explained that he called AEW and explained that it was a violation of OSAC rules. He then asked the commission if there was any other action that they would like to take against AEW. Mike Bauer stated that the OSAC kickboxing, boxing, and MMA applications all ask if someone has had gender reassignment, but for the wrestling application does not. He stated it needs to be updated so that this doesn't happen in the future. Commission members ask questions and discuss the issue that comes along with male versus female wrestling. Mike James asked what the commission wanted to do with AEW. Mike Bauer said, in her opinion, OSAC needs to be consistent and do with AEW what they did with the previous organization. And this was followed by a motion made by Dr. Larry Lovelace to warn AEW not to do this again, or there will be punitive action made against them if they do. End quote. Okay, where do I fucking start with this? Oh yeah, let's start here. Apparently Oklahoma, for reasons I can't even begin to understand, sees pro wrestling as a, quote, professional combat sports event, despite the fact that that's never been the case in the history of professional wrestling. And it's not like this is just coming out now. We've all known since the 1980s that it's a work. Wrestlers don't really fight. Well, let me take that back. Most of the time, wrestlers don't really fight. You have had the occasional shoot fight every once in a while. And this was not a test of combat between Nyla Rose and Alejandra Leon. They were working together to put on a show. Granted, wrestling can be very dangerous at times, but they weren't fighting each other for real. This is how dumb they sound. Because this would be like the Oklahoma State Athletic Commission getting mad that a play or a ballet or an ice show featured a man and a woman having a quote-unquote fight on stage. Just think about how dumb that is. I'll give you a few seconds. There you go. So, AEW's response, which is the right move to make, was to side with Nyla Rose. Tony Khan, in particular, was asked on Twitter how he was going to handle this. Now, to quote Wikipedia again, in response, AEW and Ring of Honor owner Tony Khan stated his disappointment with the decision and offered his support to both Rose and transgender rights in general, and he was very non-committal about whether AEW would run events in Oklahoma in the future. We will get to that in a few minutes. Now, according to Amy Nemini, Nemmity, he said, and I quote, "I don't think there should be discrimination against transgender wrestlers or transgender people at all. I absolutely stand by Nyla Rose. AEW stands by Nyla Rose and all transgender people in wrestling. I was really surprised by this after our show in 2023. It's not something I was expecting, and of course I was disappointed by the commission's decision in that warning. Nyla is a great part of our history. She was the first transgender champion ever. She's done a lot of work with the AEW Together community. She's a great person with a great heart. I've personally nominated Nyla to TBS to be the best social media presence for a number of years. The first Dynamite, the first shows, just look at everything Nyla's accomplished. Just to put that label on hers, that's just not right. She's so much more than that. I hope everybody can look at Nyla. She's a great person. She deserved these chances. The AEW locker room has people from all backgrounds, all beliefs. If the AEW locker room can embrace Nyla, I hope the Oklahoma State Commission can as well. Nyla will be a great special guest for the PPP.com for the AEW Dynasty pay-per-view event, and we're excited that she accepted the invitation. I think the world of Nyla Rose." End quote. Now, I've come on this podcast, and I've shit on AEW. I've shit on Tony Khan. Most other people in wrestling who aren't blowing Tony have said this kind of stuff about him. But you know what? I'll be damned, and I'll spend an eternity in hell if I could find anything wrong with what he said. He was perfect. Perfect here. Tony Khan said exactly what needed to be said, and I think most sane, rational adults agree with him. I can't find any fault in the way either AEW or Tony handled this. Again, AEW on a regular occasion makes lots and lots of mistakes, but this is one where they handled it perfectly. But this is also how dumb the Oklahoma State Athletic Commission is, because, you're going to basically follow the whole, old school tradition of, well, we don't believe in this type of thing. Well, here's how dumb they are. They don't want to see the world for what it is in 24. They insist in saying in the past, both the legislation and governor have been GOP for a while, and it's kind of not surprising given that the Athletic Commission are pretty much just political appointees, and it's clear that what sides they'll take. But they don't know how dumb they are, because karma works in mysterious ways. It's been shown over the years wrestling promoters and bookers have long memories and can be very, very vindictive. I mean, look at WWE in Kentucky. Look at what happened with WWE in Denver, Colorado. Because states and stadiums that screw over WWE have found themselves being shut out of having WWE events. WWE didn't have a televised in Denver for several years because of the Denver debacle, where the Nuggets and WWE were double booked. The Kentucky State Athletic Commission was making it so hard to hold events that WWE said, "All right, you need us, we don't need you." And a lot of other promotions either skipped the state or altogether, or had to be very careful on it. Now, again, the commission has made it clear that they will place restrictions on what can and cannot be happening, but this overlooks one crucial detail. See, in the United States of America, I can't speak for the rest of the world, but in the U.S., there are a small number of areas in the country that, if they stopped holding wrestling altogether, it would be disastrous to the wrestling industry. I guarantee you that Oklahoma ain't one of them. I mean, you do your research on this. I mean, WWE has had hundreds of pay-per-views and premium live events all over the country and all over the world. You know how many they had In Oklahoma, 1. 2005's Unforgiven. They have not had a pay-per-view in the state of Oklahoma in almost 20 years. It should also be noted that WCW, ECW, and AEW have never had a pay-per-view event in Oklahoma. And I don't think, given the circumstances, AEW is ever going to. Again, Oklahoma realistically needs pro wrestling more than pro wrestling needs Oklahoma. If the state wants to interfere with pro wrestling, that's their choice. But they can't complain if promotions don't have events in their state. I mean, if AEW decides that they don't need Oklahoma and that they're never going to run another show in the state of Oklahoma, what's the state going to do? What are they going to do? What options do you have here? There is no law that could be made that states that any nationally televised company or national company has to do business in Oklahoma. That's just not true. And if you're going to have a state where you're going to fuck with my ability to make money and needlessly fuck with, my talent because of some archaic views on the world, you need us. We don't need you. Goodbye. Right now, Oklahoma does not look good. It's not going to get better anytime soon. Tony Khan is very non-committal about returning to Oklahoma. I don't blame him. I don't think he's going to return, to be honest with you. And I know you can argue that, AEW isn't selling the number of tickets that WWE is doing and blah, 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 blah. Look, they're still making money. They're still selling tickets. And they're still making a pretty decent amount of money. And if you have fans, like if you held an event in Oklahoma City, what's stopping people from traveling from other areas of, Oklahoma and its surrounding states to watch AEW? You know what? Nothing. You know what they do when they get to Oklahoma? They buy hotels, they buy dinners, they buy tickets, they buy merch, they spend money at local businesses. So really, if you want to basically make it difficult for AEW to run their business, that's your decision. But you can't cry over the lost revenue. That ain't how it works. You can either win. Let me rephrase that. You can either accept the fact that the world isn't what you want it to be and work around it, or you can just say, hey, we're going to do this whether you like it or not, and then wonder why people don't want to invest in you. And it's amazing how many states and how many locations will have these kinds of rules despite the fact that they are not as important to the success of wrestling as they think they are. This is just another case of a bunch of myopic politicians, sucking up to the governor, who's in turn sucking up to Trump, and they're going to screw their state over, and they're not going to make themselves look good, and they have no one to blame but themselves, but they're too focused on kissing the ring to accept it. And that's exactly why professional wrestling should avoid Oklahoma City. Avoid Oklahoma in general. You're going to make it difficult for us to do business? We don't have to do business with you. Because believe it or not, for most of these national businesses, if Oklahoma starts getting uppity, they don't need Oklahoma to survive. I'm sorry, you're not a powerhouse. You have energy, money, but outside of that, you're really not known for much. Except for college football, which is, you know how I feel about college sports. So the bottom line here is this. You can either adapt or get left behind. The Oklahoma State Athletic Commission has made it as clear as day. They want to get left behind. They have no one to blame but themselves, and they deserve whatever they get. Suck it down, honey bunch. That's what failure tastes like. And with that, I'm just going to cut things off here. Episode 118 is coming to an end. I'll be back next week with another short episode. I'm Dave Frost. Leave a like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you next week.